Timely news coverage, riveting interviews, heated political debate, and all with intelligent insight. You are now tuned in to the Ian Scotto program.
Now, one thing I like to touch on this show is regulation and over-regulation by government. And what does that mean? And this story that's come out about 5-Hour Energy Drink, to me, is a perfect example of what's going on. They're trying to ban it over 33 hospitalizations and 13 deaths. Now, keep in mind that this is over several years. I think people might read that statistic and be like, wow, all these people are dying. But to me, 13 deaths and 33 hospitalizations over several years is several isolated incidents. And now the CEO of this company has addressed these comments and has addressed this attack on him by the FDA, saying that basically going after this beverage would be like going after peanuts, because some people are deathly allergic, they have adverse reactions, and people do die from eating peanuts all the time. They might not know they have this deathly allergic reaction, and they wind up in the hospital, and terrible incidents happen because of this. We're not going to ban peanuts because they're very good for you. And we're also not going to ban caffeine. People die from all types of caffeine. I don't think we're going to go after Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, but 5-Hour Energy is a relatively new company. It's a relatively small business, even though it's starting to grow, starting to become a major national trend. And I think it would be terrible to see the FDA ban something like this. And this is a perfect example of over-regulation by government. To go after a beverage because of a few isolated incidents really makes no sense to me. And it really is an attack on our freedom as Americans to drink what we want, to have what we want. And here where I am in New York, I can tell you Mayor Bloomberg has even gone after soft drinks because they're unhealthy. We as Americans have the right to make unhealthy or healthy decisions.
The second appearance in studio by Billy Mira, of course, he was on the 80s Overdrive with us. Not exactly the best time slot for that show when he was on from like midnight to 2. Quite a...
You're one of the few people besides Howard who can get me up this early. You realize that, Ian?
Wow, that's quite a compliment.
Ian has got some pull.
Yeah, Ian's got some pull. He's a good guy.
I don't care what happens to animals before I eat them. To be honest, I do
gotcha.
not give a flying F.
But do you want to put a mutated breed of pig that does not have bones into your body?
But that I don't want to do. Like, I don't care.
Even if it's as tasty as the McRib?
Well, now you've just brought in a quandary because I kind of love the McRib. And if it is a mutated pig, then that's the best mutated pig I've ever had.
Do I believe that every Republican who voted nay on this does not care about rebuilding the Jersey Shore or rebuilding Long Beach or helping out the hundreds of people who lost their homes? No, I find it hard to believe that they're that heartless. And I assume that there's always a reason why they would vote against this, especially because it makes them look very unpopular to vote against this, because the immediate reaction is that you voted to not help people, basically, during a natural disaster who had their homes destroyed, and it was of no fault of their own. Now, looking at some of the articles that came out, there's actually a really interesting article on this issue from, of all places, the Alaska Dispatch, which talks about the pork in the bill and why some Republicans voted against it. It says right here in this article that conservatives derided some of the provisions of this bill as pork. As they point out, the bill allocates billions to dozens of federal agencies, including the National Park Service, the Smithsonian, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the Secret Service, and it goes on and on and on. Now, why should money be going to that? No matter how you feel about those bureaucracies or those areas of our government, and if national money should be spent on them, what does it have to do with aid for Hurricane Sandy? The answer is nothing. But you know what it does do? It creates jobs in New York and New Jersey that weren't necessarily jobs that have anything to do with this hurricane. And who is impacted by that? Governor Christie, Governor Cuomo. Both governors of New York and New Jersey are going to have a lot of jobs created with this bill if there's pork in it, and both are probably going to have a presidential run, very likely, in the next presidential race. And that way they could say, look how many jobs we created for our state, which wouldn't be true if it's money handed to them by the federal government for Hurricane Sandy and then a ton of pork to create jobs in their state for these bureaucracies. And someone has to put their foot down and say, if this is a bill regarding hurricane aid, then the bill should be about rebuilding these places, not creating jobs and not giving money to bureaucracies that were in no way affected by this hurricane.